Courage means the willingness to stand for what you believe is right, even when they laugh and even when they ridicule. To stand for what you believe is right, even when they slam the door into your face and make you stand out on the street to face the bad guy all alone. That's courage. Courage means that when you see the innocent downtrodden by the overshadowing darkness of what seems like inescapable tyranny, and you know nothing but the chop and nothing but the plow, you will still take up your arms and go to battlefields where people speak languages you don't even know to stand for freedom. That is courage. And we have known it, and in all the previous generations of this nation's life, there have been those who showed that kind of courage. But today, as they take over our economic system, tell us that the only remedy for our problem is that the centralized bankers who created the problem should now be given control of all our money. That in order to make sure that we are able to achieve some kind of global result, we have this individual Miles going off to Europe and signing on to an agreement that says now, we can't even be mad anymore because we got bankers in America and politicians in America who aren't listening to what we say and who are taking our money in order to put it in the coffers of their greed and ambition. Because what he just agreed to lets European governments and European bankers control American corporations, who shall run them, what their salary shall be, every aspect of their lives. When the president came back, he said, the Declaration of Independence has been repealed. And I wonder, I'm glad to see the thousands out here, but when somebody turns to you and says that the independence declared 233 years ago, that the independence that has been won with the blood of our patriots, that the independence that has been defended in every generation by those lives that we see in all the white crosses and all the great fields of our patriot dead, that independence has now been destroyed, we shouldn't be indignant. We should be deeply, movingly angered by this destruction. But that control of economic life, that surrender of independence, you realize...
You don't know what's going on, do you?
That, as was just told us in this wonderful, pithy, but extremely substantive speech, shows you can fit a lot into a short space. That was a great speech. Those words, which remind us, the destruction of our sovereignty didn't begin with that abandonment in Europe. Why do you think we have open borders across which millions upon millions of illegals have come into our country, despite our laws, despite what was supposed to be our great power and security forces, military forces, across they came. It wasn't a lack of wherewithal, and it wasn't a lack of ability. It was a lack of political will on the part of leaders who were willing to leave that border wide open in the name of their globalism and their internationalism and the surrender of our sovereignty. And just as we were told, when we said no, what did they do? They did it anyway. And they are planning to do it now. There's only one big difference in all the bills they're putting on the table now. Now, not only will we have the demographic invasion, they are going to spend billions in our name to pay for it. We're going to be the first people, perhaps, in the history of the world that not only invited invaders onto their territory, but paid for them to come and take our country away. So we have seen the surrender of our sovereignty. Every time we said no, and they said yes anyway. When they wanted to hand off our billions to the bankers instead of addressing the problem itself, we said no, they did it anyway. And then they came forward with more billions. It was funny how much they argued over this and that in the budget. And then suddenly, in the course of the last few months, they have been able to find miraculously over $2 trillion. Where did they get it from? And here's what we really need to understand. I know it's close to your heart. One of the things that moves me deeply about this movement of our people right now is that the crunch hasn't really hit for a lot of us yet. Some have already felt it, but many are just anticipating what it's going to be. Do you know what has brought many of you out here today? It's not just because you're hurting. It is because you are watching what's going on and you are seeing your children and their livelihood and your grandchildren and their future, and you are saying, they are not just spending my money. They are not just destroying my liberty. They are spending our children into poverty. They are spending our grandchildren into oblivion. They are spending our nation into destruction. And we must stop them before it is too late. The most important thing about this great movement, therefore,
it says it's going to end about here. It shouldn't, but it looks like it's going to.
At the end of the day, that we're mad about losing our own liberty. The real thing that touches my heart and that could move us once again to a result that will lift up this nation again to its real hope of freedom is that we care again about our posterity. We care again about our children. We care again about those who will walk this nation after us and to whom we owe the heritage of freedom that we have. Last and difficult point, though. And I have tried to make this in all kinds of ways because I think the logic of it is clear. But they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to see it. Why do you think these folks believe that our people would be that willing, for the sake of our own short-term relief, to destroy our posterity? Why do you think they think we're like that? I'll tell you why, Because we have stood by and we have watched while they declared it to be right and a right that we should reach into the womb and snuff out the lives of the new generation waiting there. Not the generations we can't see, not the generations we can only imagine, not the generations we can only dream about, but the generations we can already see. We can feel their heartbeat, we can feel them kicking with life. We can feel them standing on the doorstep of that hope which we are supposed to represent for them. And we have been willing to declare the lie that it is somehow right to do them to death and to sacrifice our obligation so that our present interest and our present passion and our present fears may be allayed.
You're right, brother.
Don't we understand anymore? One generation stands guard, not just
understanding
for
in
itself,
this country,
but
around
for
the
the
world.
future. And in that guardianship, we
Looks
must
like it's about
overcome our
to end here.
fears, and we must overcome our passions, and we must put ourselves with discipline on the line of that defense. Whether defending the money or defending the prosperity or defending the liberty or defending the Constitution, we must be